Everybody knows that the letter to the Hebrews is structured by a series of comparisons between the Old and the New. And in each case, the writer to the Hebrews is emphasizing the superiority of the new. He's writing to Jewish Christians who, under the pressure of persecution, are shrinking back from following Jesus. They're rejoining Judaism. They're not following Jesus. They're shrinking. That's what he says at the end of chapter 10. They're shrinking back. They're fearful of persecution, and so they want to go back to a safe place in the Old Covenant. And he's trying to emphasize what they lose. They lose all the good things that have come with the New Covenant, and they go back into a covenant that's no longer effective. So Jesus is, in the Old Testament, God spoke in many portions and in many ways. God spoke through angels, revealed the law through angels. In the New Covenant, he speaks through his Son. In the Old Covenant, there was a series of priests who were qualified by flesh. They were all descended by flesh and blood from Aaron. We have a priest that's not qualified by flesh, but's qualified by the power of an endless life, by resurrection. So we have a better priest. Old Covenant sacrifices were sacrifices of animals that had to be repeated. The New Covenant sacrifice is a human sacrifice. Human blood is shed, and it's a once-for-all sacrifice. And so it's a superior sacrifice. We have a better sanctuary. We don't go into a copy of the true sanctuary. We actually access the heavenly sanctuary itself. In chapter 12 of Hebrews, he does the same kind of contrast, but this time in terms of mountains. He compares Mount Sinai, where the first covenant was made, with Mount Zion, the Zion to which we have now come, the heavenly Zion. Mount Sinai was a mountain that was full of terror. Israelites couldn't touch it. They couldn't climb it. They couldn't go up into the glory of God. Only Moses went up into the glory, and nobody else was able to touch the mountain. We haven't come to that mountain. We've come to a better mountain. We can touch our mountain. We can go up on top of the mountain. We can enter into those heavenly places and enter into the glory, and we can share in the joyful assembly of angels. We're no longer excluded from that eternal service of worship that's going on in heaven. And in the midst of making that comparison, he mentions that one of the benefits of this new covenant mountain, the heavenly Zion, is that we now have a blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. We're sprinkled with that blood, a blood that doesn't speak a word of vengeance, that doesn't call for the avenging of blood as Abel's blood did, but blood shed on the ground that cleanses the ground, a blood that calls for mercy, a blood that brings blessing instead of curses. Well, how does that blood get applied to joyful assemblies of angels and men on the heavenly Zion? I think what the writer to the Hebrews is referring to, this is another sacramental reference. We're sprinkled with the blood by receiving the blood at the Lord's table. We're sprinkled with blood because we're altars who receive the blood into ourselves. We're sprinkled with blood because we come to the Lord's table and we drink the blood, and so are reordained and refreshed in our priesthood by receiving the blood of Jesus. That's another of the contrasts that the writer of the Hebrews is implying. In the Old Covenant, there was this animal blood that purified only for a time, purified only the flesh. Now we receive a blood that we can drink. We receive a blood that's better than the blood of Abel. We receive a blood of grace that enables us to assemble on the heavenly Zion with the joyful assembly of angels and begin to worship now in that eternal worship that we will enjoy forever.